What is up, everybody? This is the Wild Nutrition Podcast, and I'm your host, Chris Heskett, and this is episode 19. Today, I interview my good friend, Nick Averona. Nick and I were co-workers at Gage Strength Training in Westchester, Pennsylvania. We worked together for a long, long time, and he is one of my best friends. He's a steel mace fanatic. I picked up the steel mace right before meeting him, and he really got me into using this amazing tool. He's also into animal flow and functional movement stuff. His background was very different than mine, where I'm more bodybuilding, powerlifting, and we learned a lot from each other on how to make our different approaches to fitness better, where I was able to include more functional movement to move in life and be more pain-free, and he was able to start lifting heavier shit so that he could do these movements a little bit easier with increased strength. But the big thing here is we want to bring it to you. So today, if you've never picked up a steel mace, a steel club, or done animal flow, or have heard those terms, you're about to get educated. These are fantastic fitness modalities that aren't mainstream. They're not dumbbells. They're kind of related to kettlebells. So where kettlebells were probably a decade ago are where these tools are now. So these are great unconventional forms of fitness that are growing popularity, that are a lot of fun to use. They add novelty. And if you're not one to really love using machines, barbells, dumbbells, that kind of stuff, these are a great way to introduce you into strength training to get something a little bit more fun. I've had many clients over the years use these tools where they hated just doing dumbbells and barbells and machines. They hated that stuff. I gave them steel mace, and all of a sudden now they loved it, and they did the barbell and the dumbbell work because it made their steel mace work so much easier. So without further ado, we're going to get into this interview. Nick has a little bit of ADD, so we go off on a bunch of tangents, so bear with us. All right, what's up, Nick?
What's going on, Coach Chris?
Good to see you. It's been way too fucking long. I think we've been trying to hang out for like 9 months, but at least podcast, we're here virtually.
Dude, I think apparently this is like part of growing up and being an adult. And I don't even have kids, but for those of you who do, it's like the one free weekend you get a month or whatever it is, usually has a plan.
Yes. Like, I mean, how many times have we text each other like, what are you doing this weekend? I'm like, I'm busy. Or you're like, I'm going to the beach with my family. Like,
yeah,
it's been a while. So tell the audience a little bit about who you are. Obviously, anyone who has been a Gage client is going to know you, but the listeners who have no idea what the fuck Gage is, tell them a little bit about you.
So I am the head trainer over at Gage Strength Training in Westchester, which is where Chris and I met when we worked together. We had a great time, learned a lot from these guys. But so I've been over there almost 5 years now. I kind of run up our programming and our client success portion here. I cover some of our nutrition and run some of the athlete programs as well. For anybody who was at Gage some years back, they know that we've evolved our offerings and evolved our program quite a bit over the past few years. For those of you who don't know Chris's background, Chris was an integral part of kind of building Gage from the ground up. We had a lot of time spent together in programming rooms and in the office. I was telling some of the younger guys today, man, I was like, some of our programming model now, like we spent hours, like days grinding in an offsite room on whiteboard after whiteboard, man.
Friday afternoons till 4 p.m. We got there.
Oh, man. Yeah,
just
dude.
Grinding out 12 to 4.
Yeah, dude. And it's funny because you realize that like most places don't or haven't ever really done that type of programming model on a scale that we've done. But we can dive into that later. So, again, I kind of run a lot of that stuff nowadays. And run the education, partly the education along with Devin and Jeff for our staff. And I kind of run our staff meetings for the coaches as well. So It's been fun, man. It's grown.
It's grown just a little bit.
Yeah, man. It's fun though. We're up to the point now, like almost like 28 clients at a time for a small group. We've expanded B out. We rebuilt B. We're about to rebuild A. So for those of you guys, you can picture Gage is kind of three rooms, one big center room. We had Chris's room, which has also become known as the reptile room when it gets really hot and sticky.
Dude, that room's so fucking
it is fucking, well, at least, dude, we have AC now.
Yeah, I left and you guys got AC.
I know. Well, that's what happened is you left. Everyone's like, all right, are we good now? We can get the AC? No. It's so funny, man. Early on, people were like, I don't fucking want air conditioning. I like it when it's hot and sweaty in here. And then it's like, can you turn the fan on? I'm like, we have AC and you want the fan too. So yeah, trust me. You know you want that AC when it's summertime. Brutal weather in the garage of the gym. But so yeah, it's been fun, man. It's been fun. Obviously, we've changed some stuff, but
yeah, as every business does, is evolve over time.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Post-COVID business too, man. That's you know, everybody kind of adapted. So it's been cool.
Yeah. So I brought you on mostly because you are kind of like the guy I go to if I want to talk about like unconventional fitness. And so before you started Gay, which is weird to say 5 years because I'm like, holy shit, it's been that long. But I kind of like started getting into steel mace and it's become more and more popular. And then all of a sudden you've showed the fuck up and it's like, oh, let me show you all the cool shit you can do with this stuff and all this other unconventional fitness stuff. So it's definitely gained popularity post-COVID where you just need like 1 10-pound mace and you have an entire home gym built out basically.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring you on and talk about steel mace, steel club, animal flow, that kind of stuff that is also great for people who aren't super into like just traditional lifting. Like barbells, dumbbells don't get them going, but throwing a mace around their head is like, fuck yeah, I feel like a barbarian.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're like, I'm a Viking warrior doing this shit. It's pretty awesome.
It is.
I mean, yeah, dude, I started part of it is in my DNA. I actually am like mostly Neanderthal, I think, or at least mostly primate. So I always used to climb and ride bikes and like do all sorts of weird shit. I'd be climbing trees when I was a kid. And then obviously through sports, you get into that like traditional strength training route. So that's kind of where, you know, I started working out in a gym when I was like 13 years old at a tier 1 training facility that one of my hockey coaches owned that we had to go to. So, you know, that stuff was where it started. And then as I got older, you know, life happens, you fall in and out of kind of fitness routines. I always just went back to the same kind of push-pull programs that I used to do, where you're like upper body push, lower body pull, upper body push, lower body pull, and kind of go through that. And then, you know, after moving around a little bit, coming back, I had a nagging knee that was just giving me trouble, like doing runs, doing anything like that. It kept clicking or like giving out and just kind of started bothering me to the point that I was like, I should probably fucking get this looked at. Come to find out, like I've got a big lesion on my knee where it met and it required having a relatively serious surgery. Otherwise, I'm looking at like a resurfacing of the knee, or they're, you know, fear mongering me into thinking like, oh, well, you could need a knee replacement in your 40s if you don't do this now. And you're like, fuck, okay, well, that seems terrible because like that's very early for a knee replacement.
Yeah.
But if you remember, I was working in medical sales at the time. So your brain is like in that vein. I'm like, oh, these operations are great. Like I watched this guy do it. This is going to be fucking super. I'm going to come out and be totally fine. I was not fine. My knee sucked. It was awful. So like my bounce back was terrible. And when I did PT, I was like stuck at like 130 degrees of flexion. That's not what it looks like. I was stuck at 130 degrees of flexion. And I couldn't get that knee movement back. And by the time I got to the PT, they were like, dude, you're far behind. And I just remember at that point being like, well, fuck, I'm probably not going to pick up a barbell like ever again. Like this, like, I don't know if I'm ever going to put weight on my back again. It just seems like I can't even bend my knee. PT, one of the first things he did was like throw a barbell on my back. And he was like, dude, you're pretty strong. Like, let's have you back squat. But I still had that kind of fear of what it was going to do and like not knowing how I was going to bounce back. I wanted to be able to play hockey. I wanted to still be able to run and do the different shit that I liked to do. So I started looking into different stuff, you know, and you look into body weight stuff, like you look into calisthenics, and me just being an absolute fucking chimpanzee, I was kind of like, sweet, I found this thing called animal flow. actually, let me take that back. One of the first things I started looking at was kettlebells. And it started with that because at the time, you know, you're thinking even now, a lot of mainstream gyms are just getting into kettlebells, right? Yeah. And for a lot of people, they're super new. They're like, I don't know what to do with a kettlebell, man. I've never used it. You know, that was the thing that opened the door. Because once you get to that, like I kind of went into the rabbit hole of On It. All right. And obviously for you guys that don't know On It, you know, Chris and I share that in common. These guys are awesome, man. Supplements are cool. They have a bunch of absolute personalities out there.
They do. There's some personalities at that gym.
Dude, it's crazy. Like you look at Swolger and you look at Leo and even like Francesca, some of the guys now, like their social media is on point, but like they have a persona, man. Leo's persona is crazy.
Yeah.
Swolger's he's just that shirtless, ripped 20-something-year-old.
Swolger, right? Actually, I think he just went bow hunting with a guy, I forget his actual name, but his handle's Thwack.
Oh yeah. I think I know. I don't remember his name either.
Yep. I've had a couple conversations with him, so I apologize for not knowing his name. But yeah, I think he just went for a bow hunt for his first time. I think.
That's pretty sweet. It's interesting how it all ties together. Like I remember years ago being, thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I like comedy and I like martial arts and I like the outdoors and I like working out. Those seem like things that don't often go together, like it's kind of weird. Like there's such different communities. And then you start meeting more people and you start like listening, and not to like, everybody knows Joe Rogan at this point, but 10, 15 years ago, like you didn't really know. So you start hearing him, you start connecting dots and you're like, oh, okay. So that whole On It community, the first thing I did was like, I kind of looked up like kettlebells and found all those On It guys. Right. So that's when I saw the steel mace for the first time, was watching Leo, and I saw Francesca and Swolger doing like the body flow movement stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And luckily there was a certification that they were doing up in New York, up at Solace. It's a 2-hour drive and it was an 8-hour day. And you're like, well, this is pretty cool. I can just take this immersive thing. I needed something that wasn't going to be extreme weight on my knee, because they told me, hey, listen, while you're recovering, like just figure it out. Like take it easy on the weights. And even with that, I'm like, okay, well, maybe lifting heavy isn't my thing now. Maybe it's body weight movement. Maybe it's this kettlebell that I can do 20 reps with and just kind of. Now, when you look at that on the other end, you're realizing when you're recovering, maybe 20 fast reps of something isn't the best idea, but I was stupid. I didn't know what I didn't know. But so I did the workshop and I met Leo, AKA Leo Savage, right? Who, has been kind of my Mace mentor throughout this and kind of the guy I've learned a lot from. At that point, Steel Mace Flow wasn't even really a born child yet. It was just like this like conception in his head, which was sweet. And you look at it and you're like, holy fuck, like that's cool. If nothing else, like your first thought is that's cool. And then you try it and then you go, oh, that's hard.
Yeah.
You're like, you see somebody do it well and it looks so easy. And you're like, oh, that's 10 pounds. That seems like silly. I, being Johnny Cool Guy or whatever I was doing, I just let people choose their maces at that cert. So I ended up with the 15 for the first time.
Yeah.
So the first time I ever used the mace, and I think a lot of people do the same thing, is like, they're like 10 pounds is too light. And they grab a 15, bro. I was smoked. Smoked after 2 hours of the 15.
15 pound, like for those of you who don't know what steel mace is, basically it's exactly what it's like, a medieval mace, except really fucking long. It's basically all the weight on one end. So
hang on. Yeah. One handy. So there's your steel mace, right?
Yep.
I got a few of them in the corner. This is how you know you love unconventional fitness too. If you're sitting in your living room and you can reach over and grab your tools, I also have clubs in the corner there, Chris, but I don't need to get those out.
No,
I got the Indian clubs there too. But yeah, go ahead.
It's all the weights on one end. So it's way heavier than you actually think. Like I remember handing a steel club to clients at Gage. It's like 15 pounds. And they're like, oh, I can squat like 50 pounds. This shouldn't be, what the fuck is this? That's not 15 pounds. Like, no, it's 15 pounds. Put on the scale.
This is 15. It's just totally different. Yeah. So, one of the things that they all had in common, and this is kind of like which leads into, and you get, I now after experiencing and going to the different, on an education and certification workshops, I get where they were coming from. But doing the steel mace with Leo, doing the kettlebell with Swolger that day, and then Francesca was the one who really turned me on to animal flow. Watching her move, and you're like, you feel like a ninja. You're like, oh, this is fucking sweet. And for me, I'm thinking body weight, I'm thinking knee like flexion that I'm getting back with it. I'm kind of controlling it. And honestly, mental. Like, I think that's something that, when you talk about the Mace flow or body weight flow, it's not dissimilar from yoga, where you're kind of getting into this movement practice that allows you to open your mind a little bit. So that was the initial kind of thought process, was like, oh shit, like this is really cool. All of these people came from this area in Texas, on it, which some people are familiar with, some aren't. Supplement company, right? That just blew up. Do you still take their stuff?
I don't have any of their stuff right now.
Oh, bro. I don't know if it's still going on this week, but they have their electrolytes are 60% off right now.
Oh shit.
So it's like their Black Friday sale, 60% off. So like 30 count is $24.
Okay.
Usually those liquid IVs, like if you buy those, they're like $14 for like 6 of them. I'm not kidding, man. That's what it was like. I think I went to Walgreens the other day. Yeah. So I'm like, shit, I'm buying 3 of these things. They're great, man. Do you take electrolytes? I know we've talked about this before. Do you take electrolytes regularly?
I do.
I you literally make them yourself.
Yes, I do. And that doesn't surprise you at all, does it?
No. I've seen your fridge.
So I just have, so mine is based off the Element electrolytes.
Okay.
So I literally just have like a bottle of potassium, a thing of salt, and then a thing of magnesium. And I just have the scoops to get me close to that. So it's like 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and I think 40 milligrams of magnesium.
Yeah, I got to start. It's way more cost effective to just make that shit yourself.
Yeah, you just have to flavor it, which sucks.
I was going to say, yeah. And what do you do with that? I mean, are you
usually just lemon juice?
Yeah, see, that's what I was going to say. You just put some lemon or lime in it and call it a day.
Yep.
That's all that shit is, man. But it's so good. Like when I had it again the other day before I worked out, I was like, wow, it feels so much better. And that shit will save your life when you're hiking.
Oh yeah. That's when those are really nice. Like the On It ones or Element or Wilderness Athlete, like the little packets.
That little Noon plastic thing. I have that anytime I'm packing up my bag. I have one of those now.
Yeah.
Dude, the one time that I went with my buddy, I think I told you this story. We went out and we did like 25 miles over the weekend, and it was out at Loyal Sock. So the elevation was crazy. We drank a ton, and I'm like, the next day, it's the only time it's ever happened. Like I felt my body shutting down. And he was like, have you taken any electrolytes today? I was like, no, I'm fucking dying, bro. And he gave me some electrolytes, and that shit just like, I was like, I just felt my muscles coming back to life. I was like, oh my God, holy shit. I'm never leaving without these.
And by drinking a lot, you mean water, right?
I mean, we may or may not have consumed enough whiskey to kill a yak, but that was, I drank a lot of water as well. I drank like 3 liters, minimum of 3 liters. I probably drank 2 of those Camelbacks.
Lots of water, sweating a ton, even if it was chilly out, and
a bottle of booze.
And lots of whiskey. Yeah, that'll deplete your electrolytes.
Not having any right now. It just so happened to be here. I had it from an event
right next to the Maces.
I know they're very close to each other. I at least have my bar on one side of the room and the steel mace on the other side, so it's all right. But yeah, man, the unconventional fitness stuff, like it opened a lot of doors, and honestly, it's the reason I ended up at Gage. I mean, you know this story, but I think there's probably a lot of people who don't know that, like, literally me doing steel mace, talking to my massage therapist about it, who was a member at Gage, Lauren. And she goes, hey, I seen one of those in the corner of the gym. There's only one guy who uses it. His name's Chris. I bet you guys would be friends. And I was like, fuck that dude. I'm the mace guy. No,
I'm the mace guy now.
I'm the mace guy. Fuck that guy. That's really funny because that's like absolutely not what I want to, like, those guys were really cool what they preached. But yeah, so my thought was like, all right, well, I'm about to be applying to different gyms. Like, I don't want to do this on my own anymore. At the time I was literally like running sessions in parks and like writing programs for people. You know what I mean? I just was like bringing steel mace, kettlebell and shit over there, and like coaching my sister and some of my friends, and like writing programs for friends. Like that was it. And I'm like, I don't really want to go to like fucking LA Fitness. Like I was being such a little bitch about it. I was, but again, at fucking like 30 years old, I'm like, bro, I don't want to go be like a dude like, hey, would you like one-on-one training program? Like, no, dude. So I was lucky, and I actually didn't even fucking call. I just showed up. I just showed up at the goddamn gym, and I was like, hi, I'm Nick. I'm super sweaty. Nice to meet you. It's summer. It's July. No, it was June, but it was still hot. And then flash forward a few months later, and you and I were like swinging steel mace, and you're like, who the fuck is this dude? I was like barefoot, shirtless, with like, because that was the thing too for the whole unconventional fitness community, is like, how little clothing can you wear while you do your workouts?
Well, when you live like on its base in Austin, Texas, so it's fucking hot there, and so that's kind of like
it makes sense.
Everyone in the steel mace community does that. But then you come to like our gym, where it's like, well, not our gym anymore, but Gage, and it's like, okay, average clientele is like our gym at the time. Average client's like 40 plus. Yeah, it's like everyone's trying to lose weight, so like most people had their clothes on. Most people had their clothes on. Coaches pretty much kept, like, when we were working out, we at least had like our shirts on and everything, like, and then you show up and you're like, nope, I'm eating a banana shirtless out of the back of my truck.
Yeah, that was probably like day 2. I was like, I'm real sweaty, y'all, so I'm gonna sit here and have my potassium out back. I asked Jeff if I had to wear shoes when I coached. That was one of the friends. I was like, yo, man, how do you feel about me coaching barefoot? He was like, I would prefer that you did not. And I was like, all right, cool. So, and then, dude, you were already wearing the Merrells when I started, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that was like kind of the intro for me, is I was like, oh shit, bro. Like, I've seen the Vivos. What are those? I don't want to pay $170 for European sized shoes that I've never tried before. And that was like, it was interesting, because I think at the, other than the guys down in Texas, you were the only coach I knew locally who was like, nah, man, like I'm doing this like barefoot thing. It's way better for your feet. I was like, dude, that's what I'm saying. Like, where's everybody been on this? But you also have a size 36 shoe. So what are 13.
13.
Whatever, bro. I've seen canoes smaller than your shoes. But yeah, dude. So it was a really interesting start, like just going out, I did that first cert in New York. And from there, Francesca was like, I stayed and talked to them for a while after. And she's like, well, hey, listen, Mike Fitch, who is the creator of Animal Flow, right? He was going, she's like, listen, he's going to be in LA. He doesn't teach level 1 certifications anymore. He only does like the level 2 or the level 3 mastery stuff. She's like, he's running a seminar in LA. If you can go, like, I know it's the other side of the country, but if you can go, like, I would definitely go. And I was like, well, fuck, I used to live there. I got friends there. Like, that's a driving distance from where I used to live. Like, let's call it a vacation. So I like flew my ass out there and did his workshop certification over the weekend, which was mind blowing. Like, that was one of the first one that I really did that I was like, oh wow, these people are fucking smart. You know what I mean? I realized how far behind I was, and that he had been doing it for 20 years. And it was like, yeah, I did bodybuilding. I did powerlifting. I've done calisthenics. I did gymnastics. I worked with Cirque du Soleil. I did this. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and that's where he kind of pulled all of this shit that he built into Animal Flow, which I don't think a lot of people know that. You just look at it from the surface and you're like, you're dancing on the ground. Like, you're doing this, this, and this. But if you look at his explanation and the understanding of like your fascial lines, he talks about Thomas Myers and those fascial constructions, and how working in those controlled rotations, controlling in through your lats, bracing in through that core, learning hip control, learning all of your angles and controlling that shit. And it just makes you immensely fucking strong.
I think a lot of people just see people like say Swolger, and they're moving quick because they are so good at it. They're just, it's like, it just looks like dancing on the ground, but you're only seeing a 60-second clip.
Absolutely.
If that. You're not seeing an Animal Flow program, which is very different.
Yeah. And even just like the applications of it, right? Like for me, it was something that I preferred to do almost like a meditative workout.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it was a bridge. It bridged the gap for certain things for me, because you're like, all right, well, yoga I can do, I like, but I also was like, sometimes I get like, I just don't want to do it, or I get over it. With the animal flow, you have yogic style applications, but as you learn the progressions and you like earn the right to flow, so to speak, and you put those movements together and you build out your own controlled movement pattern, you start out super slow and then you kind of speed it up. And it just like, you get these little like aha moments, or like that level of experimentation where you're going, oh, I can change this up as I want to. I can make it poetic if I want to. I can make it powerful if I want to, or I can just make it static, stoic, if you want to put kind of a, you know what I mean, that approach to it, of holding steady and just really fucking owning it. And I think that's like, for most of our clients, that's where the application is.
Yeah.
You know, like for the majority of people, it's like, just try to hold still, you know, like, dude, you've done the fucking like 2-point plank holds or 2-point bear crawl holds.
Yep.
It's brutal.
There. Yeah. If you do it right, it is brutal. You keep your ass down, your back flat. Like, it's tough. Get
that controlled pelvic tuck. And it's, you know, again, what we talk about in the animal flow is like, keep your hand as close to the ground as you possibly can, like just enough off the ground that it's like, I want to slide a piece of paper underneath it, and keep your knees just above the ground, maybe an inch off the ground. The closer you are to that ground, the body just wants to go down. It's like, please touch the ground. Please touch the fucking ground. Please touch the ground.
It's right there.
Exactly. It's like, it's just there. Just get it. Just touch it a little bit. Dude, the first time I watched it happen, there was this kid, and I've told clients this story before. Like, this kid was probably, I was 30, this kid was 25, fucking ripped. You know what I mean? And you're like, this kid like looks super fit. And Mike looks at him, and he hadn't explained any of this shit to us yet. And he's like, all right, man, I want you to get into beast position. Okay. So they call beast is just a bear crawl position, right? Mm-hmm. So he gets this kid in a position and he goes, all right, at the same time, I want you to lift your left hand just enough so I can put up a piece of paper under it, and just lift your back toe, point your foot up, like go from that flex and just point your foot up. And as soon as the kid did it, he slipped and just ate shit and just fell. And he looked up like what just happened to me? He had never felt that like pull of that like spiral sling, you know what I mean, pulling across his body. And he just fell. He just dropped down to his elbow, and he was like, oh shit. And Mike kind of laughed and was like, yeah. Now try it again. Do this, do this, do this. And he got the control, but he felt it. And you're going, oh, okay. So that even thought process to me was totally new from the idea of like the traditional, you know, just ignorant mindset of the lifting of like, this is what programming is just these movements, like no understanding of rotational strength, of like those fascial slings, of creating tension through the body, of then having to release that tension, which is the whole unconventional fitness approach, right?
Well, and that's the benefit. A lot of people who, you're not a bodybuilder, you're not a powerlifter, like you just want to feel good, move well, and get in shape. Like, if you like, animal flow is mostly floor based. So if you can control your body on the floor, like the confidence you build in your body and what you know you can do is amazing. Like, okay, like I know I can get down on the ground and control myself in this. It's no longer like a fearful thing. Like a lot of people, most people don't get down on the fucking floor.
Truth.
You don't get down on the floor. So it's like, okay, now you're going to be on the floor, and it's not just this like plank. Like, no, that's great. That's a great start. But now we're going to move.
Yeah. We're going to add some knee flexion into it. We're going to add some ankle flexion into it. We're going to add some movement into it. I'm going to ask you to transition from different positions to one another. Like, oh,
wait, what?
So this is like a crawling plank sort of thing. You're like, kind of,
yep.
You know, a little bit, you know, and I think, you know, well, cause you've delved into a bunch of different fitness styles, but for a long time, like you did powerlifting and bodybuilding. Right. And I think a lot of the information that was out there for people was like, you had to be a hardcore fitness person.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you had to be a hardcore fitness person, and like you had to be deep into it to understand like, you know, the conjugate method or like programming modules and different stuff like that, to where it's like, all right, you're either in or you're out. You're in this community or you're not. And there was big gaps for a lot of people. They're like, dude, I'm not a hardcore lifter. Like, I don't want a deadlift. I don't want a back squat. Like, I mean, I know that those are the things I should be doing, but I don't want to do that. And it kept a lot of people from going to the gym. You know, it was either that, not even that it kept them from going to the gym, but I think it kept them from doing the shit that they needed to do. It shied them away from strength training and into just straight machines. You know,
they either did machines or they were just doing cardio.
Yeah, just sitting on a fucking treadmill for fucking the rest of your life and wondering why you're stiff and you're not losing weight after a while. It's like, yeah, dude, you've been doing the same fucking thing forever. And like, it's great. I would much rather you do that than nothing. But the whole approach to like moving your body in dynamic ways, dude, you know, again, if you did farm work, not a lot of fucking farmers that are out there like hitting the gym hard because they don't need to. They're like, I lift bales of hay and I'm like doing shit all day long. Like my body works. I'm tired.
The farmer that farms my parents' property, he's 88. He's in shape and he just went for the PA rifle opener. He doesn't hunt PA. He just drove himself like 15 hours out to Wisconsin to compete in
that's absurd
hunting competition. That's 88.
Crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. Like, you know, it's the idea like the body in motion stays in motion, but the fact that there was nothing there to, like we were saying, is like bridge that gap between like the everyday person and strength training. You didn't see people doing fucking goblet squats. Like nobody was grabbing a dumbbell. Like 10 years ago, bro, you would not walk into a single fucking gym and see somebody holding a dumbbell in front of them and doing a front loaded squat. No way.
Just use a barbell. It's like, well,
yeah, like what are you doing?
What if you can't squat 45 pounds?
Yeah. What if you can't squat 45 pounds? Well, then fuck you, do bodyweight squats for eternity. You know what I mean? Like
leg press. Like most people just opted for the leg press.
Yeah. And even then, like that's scary for people, dude. That's scary. You're 45 years old. You have a back injury and a shoddy knee. All right, brother. I want you to lay down in a leg press, unleash these latches and hope this thing doesn't fold you in half like a fucking sandwich. You know what I mean? Like, no way, bro. That's like, it's for people who are like, no, I don't want to subject myself to that. Now you start out and you go, here's a 20-pound kettlebell. And they're like, oh, well, this doesn't weigh that much. All right. Can you sit down and stand up with it? Yeah, I can. Like, what do I do with this stupid thing is the first thing they think, right? Sit back down and stand back up. Cool. You just did a squat.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
That's and then squat. Yep.
Yeah. And with a mace, you're like, this is 10 fucking pounds. And people are like, this is going to be easy. And then you teach them the actual application of it. And you're like, listen, I want you to take this thing. I want you to open up. I want you to pull it to your chest. I want you to get your elbows off your body, rip this fucking thing apart. Okay, cool. You feel that? Yeah. It's okay. Now brace your core and rip your feet to the ground and do it. And they're like, oh my God. And they start sweating and shaking. And you're like, all right, how's that 10 pounds feel now? They're like, fuck you. And you're like, yeah, like that's right. You know, and now let's add some lunges I just did it with one of our coaches, one of the new guys. He's like a 245-pound kid. He's strong as hell. We did Mace for like 9 seconds. Okay, exaggeration. We did it for like 8 minutes. And I was just teaching him like, okay, now lateral, just do some alternating laterals. Let's just do some bicep curls. We went through the basics and he was like, all right, that's wild. That's okay. Like, yeah, grip that thing up, man. Grip the mace, create tension.
Yeah.
You know,
it absolutely crushes you when you create that tension with 10 to 15 pounds. Like that's all it is, which is great. Anyone who has like knee injuries, like at the end of the day, like you're creating tension, but it's only 10 to 15 pounds on your joints.
It's absolutely. That like vertical load. And then it also teaches people how to actually engage their feet into the ground.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And actually get like that spiral effect because you're kind of like, all right, listen, the whole application of this, and which is one of the reasons why I fucking love it for especially new people to strength training, is like the application of steel mace is creating tension through the body. It's in focused intention on creating tension, right? And that focus of the brain carries over where you're like, if you don't do this when you're strength training, you're missing a lot of the benefit. Like, I need you to know where your core is. Like with the mace, if you do this and you fire your ribs out, you know you're not doing it right. And you have to like bring those ribs down, drop those shoulders back. If the weight drops into your side and like is pushing up against your ribs, you're like, oh, I'm off balance. I have to fight that thing off. Oh shit, now my lats engaged. That's what that fucking feels like. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it just like the idea of irradiating tension, whether you're a power lifter and you're trying to break the bar in half on your goddamn deadlift and locking your lats and embracing your core, driving the floor, ripping the floor apart like a psychopath, like some people I know. Heskett.
Except I haven't deadlifted in a year and a half.
Hey, whatever, bro. I'm also off the deadlift game mostly. That's why my booty gains have dropped, but it's okay. You know what I mean? Got to build that butt meat back up. But it's like that helped me deadlift, man. Like going and doing that shit. I remember with you guys, I walked in, I was like, yo, man, like seeing all you guys lifting like real weights and stuff. I was like, all right, like at the time I had mostly just been doing like kettlebell squats and high intensity stuff. And I hadn't really been doing my barbell work. And I think I looked at you and I was like, don't let me go higher than 225. It was like day one. I was like slapping like extra weights. You're like, there's no way you're staying at 225. Like it's ridiculous. But I felt good from doing all that other shit.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, so I was just like swinging the fucking mace around when I first started.
That's the coolest thing though, too, is like, this shit's heavy.
Yeah, this is heavy, but it also really helped open up my shoulders. But where I really learned a lot of the benefit of this was when I got my knee injury from fucking trying to do powerlifting and kickboxing at the same time. That is a mixture that doesn't go hand in hand when you're not getting enough sleep.
Yeah,
so
dude.
I couldn't really squat heavy. I couldn't really do anything heavy, but I could focus on building tension and stability, holding like a goddamn 25-pound mace, which is fucking heavy, up on my chest and stabilizing that in a rear foot elevated split squat or a lunge. It's like, holy shit.
Hold that shit for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay. It sucks a lot.
Yeah. Like 25 pounds, that's about like 2 feet away from you is really, really heavy and really hard to stabilize. Like even 10, 15, I didn't start with 25. I worked up to that, but then my knee that was like my rehab. Like my knee really started to recover after doing that. And then I could get back into squatting.
Yeah, dude. It's like the idea of like rooting your feet into the ground and understanding that you're like, oh, okay, everything comes from the ground up. Like if I can create tension from the ground and get like that little bit of that corkscrew movement from my legs all the way up, stabilize my knees, stabilize my hips, stabilize my core. It's like, this is all similar like rotational patterns that I'm trying to get control of, right? You know, the idea of like unwanted rotation. If my spine rotates down, like I want to control that. If my knees are rotating in the wrong direction, I want to control that. And the lighter the weight is, the more you're able to like actually notice when you have those goddamn deficiencies.
Yeah.
Which is hard for a lot of us to like look at and be like, I don't want to use 10 pounds. Like that's too light. You're like, all right, well, if it's good enough for this dude, there was a guy training next to me at the one cert I did, and he was an Israeli special forces guy or Israeli, whatever he was. He was some sort of dude that worked in New York. And I was like, okay. And he's yoked, bro. Like absolutely yoked. At one point, we like takes his shirt off and we're like doing it. And I'm like, fuck this guy. Like this guy is scary. And he was just like ripping into this thing. And you're going, all right, man. Like if this guy can smoke himself on this, like I'm either not trying hard enough or like this is good for everybody. You know what I mean? Like I got this older woman over here who's doing great, like doing it, creating tension. And then this dude next to me who looks like he's about to just like go ham and assassinate somebody. It was wild, man. It's just like, it's such a fun tool. And then there's the whole other side of it, which is what you were doing at the time, which is more like, you know, like Rick Brown and like heavy swings.
Yep.
Which is the traditional use of it. It's like the Gata swings.
Yep.
That's what you see most, I still think. You know what I mean? You see a lot of people like doing it as like the heavy swings as part of their warm up or just like off days.
Yeah. I've gotten a little off of it, but yeah, I still love just doing heavy ass swings.
Dude, the shoulder rock. I love that thing. The first time I fucking use that, like it's even just to start people, because it's hard, man, especially with most people, how they deal with like that rounded forward posture, like the upper crust and shit, where they're like, so you're like, all right, now get the mace behind your head. And it's like, shit. So there are some limitations on that, right? But even just doing, that's why I think I think I remember Shane Hines saying this, who's the, you know, one of the directors of education at On It. And like him and John Wolf were both really big club guys, right? Like they both came from, oh my God, I can't remember the name of the association, where they were like teaching the Indian clubs and heavy steel clubs, right? And Shane was like, well, this bridges the gap between like steel mace or like this, and the steel mace is kind of the gap in between, because the clubs are a little bit more difficult, but there's different things you can do. Like adding that pullover with a club and really focusing, you're like, oh shit, that's really forcing me to, like, my lats right now, because they're so tight, are cramping when I do that. Right. Like I need to do those banded lat stretches. But so like if I do that and even try to create tension and keep it in, I can start to cramp, and you're like, oh, okay, that means like my range of motion sucks right now. But doing like when you can finally get to that, so you're like, okay, maybe I use clubs for a minute to open up, or maybe I add those stretches, and then just doing those pendulums behind your head, you're like, oh wait, my shoulders are opening up. I feel a little bit better. Like I don't have as much of that forward control posture. And then eventually you work your way into that fucking swing. And the next thing you know, what was the most you were ever like swinging?
55.
55. That's fucking heavy.
It's fucking heavy. It was like 3 swings. And on the shoulder rock, which the thing that keeps it on is like barely on there. So any little rotation that happens, that unscrews and the weight comes slamming down. So I did like 3 and I'm like, I'm done. I'm
glad I got those and didn't hurt myself.
Yep.
Could you imagine catching that momentum, and as the momentum goes, the fucking end pops off and you're just like, just across the fucking room?
Well, no, it won't do that. It'll only come straight down your wrist, which has happened to me.
Oh, that's right. Because it's the top loaded one.
Yeah.
Oh God, I forgot about that. It's not the loaded from the bottom. You have to top load. That would suck.
Yeah, so it won't go across the room. You don't have to worry about that. But when you come up, and if you rotate a little bit, I had a 25 and a 10-pound plate, just like at the last second, I just let go, but it's still like slammed into my wrist. So usually I just stick with like a 25 so it's a 9-pound thing. So it's like 34 pounds.
Yeah, that's a lot of like, dude. I mean, anybody who's ever swung a 15, you feel it. You swing a 25 and you're like, all right, that's pretty heavy. You know what I mean? Like the quad god, I think from on it is 25.
Yeah, that's a 25.
Yeah, and that thing feels pretty fucking heavy.
Yeah.
I've swung 35. I never swung anything more than 35. I swung 35 with at Jamie Pinto's place in the city.
Okay. Yeah.
And dude, those guys are still going with the Mace flow, which is awesome. Like I did the level 2 stuff, which was, just expanding upon it, adding more power and dynamic movement to it, which was, that's just a whole different realm. Like the steel mace flow stuff just is a whole different world, which is fun, man. It's awesome.
Steel mace flow. Like I like swings. I like steel mace flow. I don't really enjoy like the very like strict, like, all right, you're going to do like this kind of flow, 8 reps on each side. Exact, like perfect. I don't enjoy that. I see the application. It's not my thing. Some people love it. And if that's your thing, like go.
If you want to add it to a workout, you know what I mean? Like I like that. Like I like adding those steps in, obviously do a workout. Yeah. I never got into like the rigid function of like, I'm doing 8 each side and 8 each side and 8, for each of these. I'm like, I like to I practice those things to get better at them. You're like, all right, I'm going to do 20 each side of these switches. I'm going to do this switch to this switch 10 times and like, see if I can get better at it. But it was always the end goal for me. It was like, I want to move, like I want to get better at these things. I want to do them well so I don't hurt myself. And then again, it's the idea of like earn the right to flow, like do the movements well, but that comes with, cracking yourself in the shin sometimes when you're doing like a sword swing or like,
that hurts.
Sword swings aren't necessary. Like they're cool and they're good for shoulder health, and you can like do like it can be good for shoulder health. Let me put it that way. They're not necessary, but they're fucking fun. Like
they're fun and they look cool as shit. Like
they do. They look cool.
You have a client do it, and then you record them, and then you show them. They're like, I look badass.
Yeah. Listen, man, I am here to empower people. I am here to like make people feel fucking good. And if doing sword swings is something that you think is cool, as long as you don't do it to the point where you get like elbow tendonitis and shit,
that happens.
Yeah. When you're practicing it too much and you're doing like mills and swords and shit, and you're like, the mills too, man, you do too many of those goddamn mills. The next thing you know, you're like, yeah, but that's some shit.
Well, that was the cool thing. Like you would give like 45-year-old woman, 50-year-old woman, you would just hand them a mace. And then in like a matter of like 3 to 4 weeks, all of a sudden, like, they're like, I feel like super badass. Like they came into the gym being intimidated and scared of the gym. And now all of a sudden it's like, I love this thing because I
I
feel
love
like
it.
I'm Xena the Warrior. It's like,
Yeah.
if
And
that
you
gets
can
you
do
in
it
the gym, like,
anywhere.
fuck yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can do it anywhere.
Then you get clients like buying their own and they're sending you videos of them doing shit at home. And it's
Yeah.
awesome.
It is, man. And it's one of those things where I know like I have fallen off it a little bit. Just it's like, you know, I'm a goddamn, I like doing a whole bunch of different stuff, but obviously I almost always have one in my car and I still do it at least once a week, whether it's in my warm up or my cool down. But I love it. And I feel like keeping in touch with people that are still doing it. Like if people are doing it all on their own, it's just like anything else. If you're on an island, a lot of times it's hard to maintain that habit or that consistency. You know what I mean? So having the community, like the Steel Mace Flow community was and still is pretty strong, right? Obviously, there was some of that bullshit that was like divisive stuff. That was nonsense.
That was nonsense.
Some of it still goes on, but
My
like,
way's the correct way. No.
Just even like making fun of people for the way that they choose to work out, or like getting mad at somebody because they like, you know what I mean? Like, dude, it's fitness stuff. Like, you know, y'all are all out here creating. We're all out here like swinging together. My buddy Andrew Elmsley was like, dude, we're swinging a stick. All of us are out here swinging a goddamn stick. We're monkeys swinging a stick, y'all. Like, let's enjoy it and have fun. He's the fucking best, man. But I just always laugh about that because I'm like, that's the goddamn truth. Like, everybody has their own creative way, but ultimately, like, it's primal. Like, you're doing something that connects with your brain. It's awesome for coordination. That was the thing that I think that you and I found the most is like when we program for people is they would come back and they're like, I feel more coordinated. And you're like, yeah, everything's working together, you know, and working that, like that pattern recognition of like, that's the flow part of it. That's the, like, that's where I think, again, like you were saying, if you just do rigid, like 8 steps each side, you miss that component to where they say that as you get older and you're in your 70s and 80s, like dancing is one of the best things that you can do for your coordination and for your development and your neurological function. Steel Mace Flow is fucking dancing with a 10-pound weight. And now you're adding that isometric hold to it. So,
well, generally, like if you're using machines or just like traditional strength training, technically, deadlifts and squats are like full body movements, but nothing, the upper body in, say, a squat or a deadlift is just static.
Yeah.
Versus in a steel mace, like if you're doing a flow, the upper body and the lower body can be moving at the same time.
Yeah. And they're moving in conjunction and they're trying to find balance. You're trying to do the same thing on the left that you did on the right most times. And for the majority of people, they're like, whenever we get to the, you know what I mean? Like, do things with your left hand. And you're like, I can't even eat a sandwich with my left hand.
Yeah. And so the brain all of a sudden starts creating these other pathways. And in a couple of weeks, it's all of a sudden like, holy shit, like I feel so much more confident in my body because your body can function. Like it's now like used to, like I'm swinging around this weight while doing a lunge. Oh shit. That's something I've never done ever.
Yeah. It's like when, you know, again, the idea of like having to climb or run or move and do things like for people who used to play sports, like you're dynamically moving. You're not even thinking about what is my posture. You're just fucking going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Mace is a little bit more controlled than that, but it's a similar approach of like, I'm going to move my body in different ways. And, you know, it's a good kind of system and structure to be able to do that. And with that, dude, I don't know if you've done this and it's weird. And one of these days I'm going to record myself doing it because like, it's super uber weird, but like I spend time just fucking moving. Whatever movement I feel like, I'll be like rolling around on the ground and like rolling and put my arm over my head, like whatever the fuck I feel, I just go barefoot and I like turn some music on and you feel so good when you just let your body explore those different movement patterns that you probably don't ever get into. And I think that people we lack fun. We lack fun in the shit we're doing. Have fucking some fun, whatever that means, you know?
That's a great thing about steel. I would do that with like recovery days with Steel Mace. Like there's some music on you want to listen to and just whatever the fuck you feel like doing. Yeah. You just
practice some
go with
shit.
Music. And next thing you know, you're like, what the fuck? Has it been 3.5 minutes yet? Because I'm fucking dying. Yeah. You're like, man, recovery. All right, I'm good to go again. And like, you exhaust yourself, but at the same time, you're just having fun. It doesn't feel like a workout.
And that's part of it too. You know, the idea like with that, we heard that a lot with people like, oh, like I was losing my motivation in the gym and coming and doing Steel Mace was like a lot of fun for me. And it kind of like reinvigorated my need to do these things. And now I go back to strength training and I like feel a little better, you know, like you do it in off days. You could do it as part of your warm up. You could do it you could do the Mace by itself. Like there's so many different applications for it. We still use it in programming. Obviously, I don't have people doing swings, but I have them doing switch squats and mace chops and shit like that. It's just it's a cool segment of the fitness world that it's cool to see that it's kind of coming into the light a little bit more, even if it's just the swings to start. Because like we were saying earlier, like there's a number of people, like they don't want to do machines. They don't want to do back squats. They don't even really know necessarily like where to start in the gym. And you're like, well, you can buy one of these. It can live in your car. It can live in your whatever. And, there's people to follow. There's resources. There's different like workouts you can do. And it's a starting point,
Right,
it's fucking fun.
For $30 to $40.
Yeah.
For a 10-pound mace.
Yeah. And then, even like some of the workout programs, like I know neither of us have one out, but I know there's workout programs out there that Leo's got out. I think Jamie's got one out. Ben Walker's got one out. Like some of those guys have relatively cheap like workout programs that would just intro to it. Or at this point, there's so much free stuff on YouTube.
There's so much free shit.
Oh my God, man. Like just looking at those different things. Shit. If anybody really wants to do steel mace, have them shoot me or you a message. I'll mess with people with it. I still, practice it plenty and gonna be doing a workshop the next couple months here over at Gage. I promised a number of people that I would bring it back because they've been asking me about it. So I was like, all right, fuck it. Let's do it. I'll bring it back. I'll do another, 3 or 4 hour workshop. I'll get you in the next time we do a self-defense one, man. You're gonna have to come.
I'll definitely have to get up there for that.
That shit was fun, bro. And the guy that I've got with me, Dan Peterson, he's a brown belt in Krav. And I had, if you remember Rick Krangle?
Yeah.
So Rick's been doing Krav now.
Has he really? That's awesome.
Yeah, dude. And we got another new guy who just, his name's Joe. Joe's awesome. And he just has been doing martial arts for like 15 years. He's done.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, he's done like Kempo and all that stuff. But we had 20 people there, man. And we put on like a little cert. It was not a cert. It's the wrong term. A little workshop. Dude, it's so imperative, like people just to like do something when it comes to self-defense. Like,
definitely.
It's so good mentally too, like everybody walked out of there and I like even just to hit a fucking pad, man, even to learn how to strike a pad, dude, you should have seen people going ham doing the hammer fists. Dude, it's, how it feels. It's just such a release, a cathartic release when you hit the pad,
It's so nice, especially when you're stressed the fuck out.
Especially when you're dressed up like King Leonidas and you're dressed like Elmo and I get to 300 punt you in the chest. Oh, that video still lives somewhere. I got to find that.
It's on the Gage, in the Gage Facebook group somewhere. You got to find that. Team Blue something, I'm sure.
That was so good. Shit. But yeah, man, all that stuff is good.
So we're almost out of time, but you mentioned it real quick. Let's talk about clubs.
Ooh, I'm into the clubs.
Yeah. So I've bought a pair of 25s and I have a 35 now, and it's absolutely brutal. So what are the main benefits of using steel clubs? Because they're like if you never hold one, it's definitely different than a mace. It's similar, but very different.
They are, for me, it's like if mace is controlled stability, is like rotational stability. I see the club almost like as like joint stabilization. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? On like a different level, just because everything you do with the club is a little bit closer to the body. You know what I mean? So like elbow, wrist, shoulder, like shoulder health with the clubs is huge. The lighter ones that you're using, and even just like that rotational strength. Similarly, when you get up into those heavier clubs, like it's gonna pull you where it wants to pull you, you know? Doing a swing with a 35-pound club to a shoulder rack, you're like, oh shit, this is very, very different, and
it's exhausting.
It is, man. And then you have to learn your structures pretty solidly too, where the club reinforces lines. And I think the mace allows you to bend those lines. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If that makes sense, like you have to like have sound structure with the club where you really want to stack your joints up and really control like where they're going and have that stability in any sort of rotation or press or squat. With the mace, again, you can kind of bend those lines a little bit. You can kind of move the torso, move the upper body in ways that you might not necessarily do with a club. No. You're like, yeah, do a fucking 10-pound single arm club squat. And you're like, that sucks.
Well, it's definitely easier to do single arm stuff than the Mace, because the Mace you have to stabilize so much that it's very challenging for people. So you can do single arm stuff, or you can have one in each hand, much easier than the Mace. And then you really want to do like a mind fuck. You can do upper and lower body stuff while independently moving clubs.
That shit's
and
yeah, and that's where like your coordination goes to the next level. Like, you know, some of the stuff that you used to do was sick. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like coordination wise, like in your brain, being able to operate, you know what I mean? Like doing like alternating inside and outside mills, and then like add some sort of like lunge to one of those mills, or add some sort of like punch to one of the mills. And it's like, oh shit. You know, like you watch Frankenlegs, like dude up in Canada, and you're like, oh, that's
you're like, well, he's doing what?
It's intense. Like, what are the snake?
The snakes. I haven't done those for a little while. That I actually know. I tried it a couple weeks ago. I was like, oh, I need to get back to these. That sucked, because I find clubs also absolutely destroy your forearms. Like, you want to build grip strength.
Yeah.
Get on some clubs,
dude. Most of the guys, like you'll see, and you go to jiu-jitsu, like they at least have like Indian wooden clubs. Like one of the first things when I went over to Alliance, like the owner Chris had the Indian clubs in there, because again, with the grip strength with the gi, you're constantly gripping and rotating and pulling, and you're like, oh, the clubs are one of the best applications for mobilizing like that radial area, like in that joint up there. You know what I mean? That getting that wrist strength and those flexors and extensors opened up and moving. Dude, I came back and immediately started doing club stuff when I started jiu-jitsu again. I was like, oh shit, my forearms are ripped right now. So that's one of the best things for it. And most of those guys, like, they don't even like know or think that there's like a heavier steel club. Some do, and and you can tell, and they do the you know what I mean, the extensions, and you're like, it's wild.
Well, I like using clubs for archery, because when you have to hold that position, because you press the club out, and your forearms and your shoulder and your lat and everything has to stabilize.
And that vertical positioning is almost identical, right? Like with that.
But I can hold the club like this and stabilize everything. It's not a true archery position, but it's close. So
the top arm, like in terms of locking that lat in and really getting that control through that back shoulder, you're like, if you try and hold the club up here, you're going to gas out, you're going to get pain. You have to like let that rotate back in and down and lock that shoulder blade in, just like you would with a bow. Yeah.
And the great thing for people is like the old Indian clubs are like anywhere between like 1 to 3 pounds.
Yep.
But then you can get 5-pound steel clubs, which I have and I use for warm-ups almost every single day.
Up to like a
45 is the heaviest on it sells. I know some of them make like weighted ones, 8X.
Oh, 8X.
They make ones that go heavier, I think up to like 80.
That's ridiculous.
But they were sold out of the 45. I was going to go for a 45. I'm glad I got the 35.
Yeah, it's heavy, dude.
It's fucking heavy. Even two arms.
Looks like a cannon.
It's so big in the garage.
Yeah.
It came in. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This thing is massive.
PS guy was like, fuck this, dude.
Yeah. Well, the 25s came in at the same time. I got a pair of those. Doing a pair of 25s. Holy fuck. That was unreal. Like, to hold that.
Yeah, man. And that's the thing. Like, you just don't realize how just simply changing that lever point with the weight can make the world of difference for people. And it all comes back to like the same concept of like controlling the rotation. The club wants to pull down, the club wants to pull somewhere else. Like, you have to focus your tension on where you want it to be, because if the shoulder raises up, oh, nope, that's not it. If the chest flares out, nope, that's not it. So like the idea is just getting everything in the body to come back and control into like that core, into that like pillar stability of like hips, shoulders, core. You know what I mean? And that, like, that's why I love it, man. And that was the gap that it kind of bridged for me and filled a lot of these different areas where you're like, oh, okay, I can use this mobility, therapeutic wise, mental clarity and focus, or I can just have a goddamn good time with it. You know what I mean? And it's fun to move and flow with different people, you know, like that sort of thing. Like, there's something where that connection, like those neural connectivity, where you're like, oh yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So it's been fun, man. Like, it's a good practice. You know what I mean? So
it's a lot of, it's fun to do the flow, like learning the basics and then taking it and flowing and having fun with it. That's where you're like, oh, this used to be hard. And now I'm just literally playing with this type of movement pattern. Like, I'm just out here having fun.
And you don't have to get crazy with it, man. It's just fun to be able to create your own routines. And again, like we said, there's so many resources out there now that like if people wanted to delve into it, and I'd be happy to help out anybody who wants to as well. But it's just such a fun practice, man. So I'm glad you're still swinging Mace at least a little bit and having fun with it and moving clubs.
Still at least part of the warm-ups. Nothing helps warm up my shoulders better than clubs and Mace. Like all the bands and you could do anything. Nothing's more fun that I'll do consistently. I think that's important. I'll consistently always do it. And it's actually effective. Yeah.
That's again, it has to be fun. We have to turn it into something that you want to do. If you don't want to do it, it's not going to get done most of the time, unless it's just something that, I'm sure you talk to your peoples all the time about, like, unless you just make it a habit, you got to make it fun to make it be something that you're going to do or something that you get a reward from, because we're all animals in the end of it. So
exactly. All right. So before we continue talking for the next 45 minutes, anything else you want to finish up with?
I mean, not necessarily, man. I mean, it's just been, it's cool to see how people just kind of take that application and roll with it. You know what I mean? And if anybody's nervous about getting into fitness, like just grab a light kettlebell, grab a light steel mace, do something like that, and find a coach, find a mentor that's be willing to help you. There's plenty of them out there. Yeah. You know what I mean? And for the people that are listening to you, I'm assuming and hoping like they're, you got Chris, you got a lot of different people that are open to providing guidance and providing advice. And I hope they're able to share that with others.
Definitely. Awesome.
Anything else that you want to talk about, Chris?
No, not today.
Visit this on another time. You're like, I have a child and a family, bro.
They're not home yet, but they will be shortly. So thank you for coming on. Where can people find you? Instagram, Facebook?
So on Instagram, the best reach is just Coach Nick Av, AV as in Averona. So Coach Nick Av is my best handle there. Silverback Steel Mace is the other one that I use that I've put some content on that I'm trying to revitalize here a little bit, get some more content on there. All right. And then at Gage Strength Training, when I'm still kind of head coaching, if anybody's ever looking for me, feel free to stop by and ask for me. I'd be happy to see you. All
right. So if you guys want to get into any unconventional fitness stuff, reach out to him on Instagram. He'll definitely help you out, or you can also reach out to me. Those links will be down in the show notes. Thank you, Nick, for coming on.
Guys, absolutely my pleasure. Chris, it's good seeing you. I'm sad that it's on Zoom for the first time in a while, but it's hunting season, it's holiday season, so we're both running around a little bit. We didn't get to hunt this year yet, but
no, we haven't hunted together this year.
Some jerky sticks.
There you go.
My snack. So, buddy, great to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me on, man. And I look forward to talking again soon.
Definitely. We'll have you on again.